I want to have a whole new way of presenting myself as Nicolas Cage in filmmaking.
Coming up on this edition of Movie Star, the career of an actor known for both classic and quirky roles, Nicolas Cage.
There aren't that many movies you can take the whole family to and feel good about it.
Nicolas Cage is not afraid to take risks. He's been known to go to extremes to understand a character. His family connections got him into show business, and his character choices kept him there.
Just to see him, you know, in the choices that he makes when he's in a scene, he's out there, and I so respond to that. I think it's really cool. He's fearless.
I was a big fan of his, been a big fan of his since I was a kid. I grew up watching his movies.
Well, Nick's kind of like, you know, an everyman. I mean, guys look at him, they see themselves.
That everyman persona of Nicolas Cage isn't the only reason fans go to see him. According to Michael Spire, managing editor of Variety, Nick knows how to choose a role.
The qualities that everyone seems to think make Nicolas Cage such a big star is that his availability to do any kind of role. That is the big budget actioner, which he did with Con Air, but he also does smaller, more intimate movies, like the one for which he won an Oscar, Leaving Las Vegas.
Cage knows from experience what's needed for success. Early in his career, he turned to his famous uncle, director Francis Ford Coppola, for advice.
When I was 15, I lived up at his ranch.
The family business inspired Nick to study movie history. Nicolas Cage was born in Long Beach, California on January 7, 1964. His birth name, Nicholas Kim Coppola, but he changed it at age 17 to Nicolas Cage. He cited two sources for the new name: experimental composer John Cage and the comic book character Luke Cage.
There was Nicolas Coppola, and then there was Nicolas Cage, which is the invention of me, which I needed to do to realize my dreams.
Cage's mother, Joy, was a dancer. His father, August Coppola, a college professor. College was a priority for his parents, but Cage skipped those 4 years of higher education to start his career early with a TV series. A year later, Nick appeared in his first movie, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He's credited as Nicholas Coppola. In 1983, he dropped the Coppola and became Nicolas Cage to play punk rocker Randy in Valley Girl. Uncle Francis Ford Coppola directed Cage in his next teen movie, Rumblefish. And after 1984's Racing with the Moon, Nick worked with his famous uncle again in The Cotton Club. Cage made another movie in 1984, Birdie. Nick had his wisdom teeth pulled without Novocaine to understand his character's pain. Critics praised the performance. After Birdie, Uncle Francis called on Nick once again for Peggy Sue Got Married. Cage co-stars with Kathleen Turner and Jim Carrey in an early role.
I know him as a human being. He's a terrific guy. He's a wonderful father, and you know, he's a good-hearted dude.
Raising Arizona was next. Cage stars as former convict H.I. McDonough. Holly Hunter plays his wife, a policewoman who'd do anything for a baby. Raising Arizona was well received and has achieved cult status. His next movie was no less quirky, but turned into a huge hit, Moonstruck.
I think one of the big Nicolas Cage movies in terms of fans as well as critics was Moonstruck, the movie back in the late 80s for which Cher won the Best Actress Oscar.
Although Cher was 40 years old and Nick only 22, as lovers on screen their chemistry clicked, earning him a Golden Globe nomination.
That showed Nicolas in a sensitive role, it showed him in a comedic role, it showed that he could break out of the Coppola family and do something on his own.
2 years later, Cage took method acting to a new level for Vampire's Kiss. In one scene, he eats a real cockroach. Unfortunately, the movie was less than a success, much like his next movie, the quickly forgotten Top Gun ripoff, Firebirds. Cage's box office started to improve with David Lynch's Wild at Heart. In the next 2 years, Cage's girlfriend, Christina Fulton, gave birth to his son, and he tried to shake things up on screen with Honeymoon in Vegas.
This is the first time I've played a character like Jack. There really isn't any other kind of role that I've played that really would suggest that I could do it, and I think I kind of had to convince Andrew Bergman that I could do it.
Facing his fears paid off. Cage earned another Golden Globe nomination. He followed up with a favorite of the critics, the thriller Red Rock West. After Red Rock West, Nick made a comedy about racism, Amos and Andrew. Samuel L. Jackson plays a successful writer who's mistaken for a burglar after moving to an affluent white neighborhood. Cage plays a convict. In 1993, Cage teamed up with his brother, Christopher, who directed Deadfall. That same year, Cage also had fun with Shirley MacLaine in Guarding Tess. Cage hoped his next film would become a holiday favorite, but Trapped in Paradise, co-starring Dana Carvey and John Lovitz, had a very short run.
You here for the Winterfest? Yeah, that, plus we're looking for a Sarah Mizuchi.
Comedians in general are very competitive, I find, because it's all about who's going to get the laugh. And they come up with a joke and another person takes it. And so there's this incredible, like, athletic, competitive attitude that comes in this form of talent, I think.
Trapped in Paradise, Guarding Tess, and a third comedy, It Could Happen to You, all came out in 1994. By 95, Nick was ready for a change, playing the psychotic mobster in Kiss of Death, a movie co-starring David Caruso and Michael Rappaport.
I think that when an actor, any actor, if they're plugged into the script and to the character, an actor can't help but get into the head of a character. You don't want to get too far into it, but it just sort of happens spontaneously.
Kiss of Death turned out to be just that at the box office. But things started to look up in early 1995 when Nicolas Cage married actress Patricia Arquette. They had dated briefly years earlier and decided to tie the knot on a whim. A few months later, Nick landed the lead role in Leaving Las Vegas, a drama about a man determined to drink himself to death. Cage prepared for the role by binge drinking and having a friend film him drunk.
Hi.
I couldn't remember what happened last time. I like to refer to him as crumbled elegance, that at one time he had this style about him and that he was charming and maybe a little sophisticated.
I think it's a love story that is born in a very desperate world. So it's stripped bare of anything other than need.
Nick's commitment to the movie was rewarded with a Golden Globe and an Oscar.
The movie that made Nicolas go from star to superstar was the Oscar-winning Leaving Las Vegas, the Mike Figgis film, only because that showed he had range.
Again, Cage switched gears, diving into action with producer Jerry Bruckheimer in 1996 for The Rock.
He's a rookie, and he's getting thrown into an horrendous situation.
Action, Nick!
Nobody really knows how to get onto the island of Alcatraz, except for the one person who managed to escape, which is John Mason, who's played by Sean Connery. So the two of us team up and get on the island and hopefully neutralize the threat.
Bruckheimer immediately hired Cage again for Con Air.
It's a very interesting study in acting, as what Cage has done, because he decided to go with these high testosterone Jerry Bruckheimer movies, and whether or not he did that on purpose, that remains to be seen, but it certainly got his paycheck up.
With John Woo's Face Off, Cage began to wonder if all this action wasn't too much of a good thing.
Initially I was pretty concerned about it, and then I thought, no, there's a positive way to look at this. This is I call it my double action album. This is my box set. And that, in fact, my goal, which was to do character work in big action movies, paid off.
In Face Off, Cage and John Travolta play an FBI agent and a terrorist who surgically trade faces. To pull it off, each actor learned to imitate the other.
It's just by spending time with Nick and knowing his cadence and his poetry almost. Nick has a poetic way of expressing himself.
For those keeping track, Face Off was the third movie in a row where Cage is flung through the air by an explosion. Not one to be stuck in a rut, Nick soon found a movie that would fling his career in a new direction.
Why are you doing this?
Because I'm in love with you.
With a string of action movies behind him, Nicolas Cage needed a change. City of Angels was the answer to his prayer. He was tapped to play an angel who watches over Meg Ryan.
City of Angels was that opportunity to be sort of born, to fall and to become human. What a great challenge.
It was an incredibly difficult thing for Nick to do, is to play somebody that you could empathize with who wasn't an emotional being, quite. I think that's such a difficult task, and he did it so beautifully.
City of Angels opened in 1998.
the same year Cage received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
I can remember over 20 years ago, a young kid with my, science fiction mind walking up and down this street and thinking, man, if I could just get my name on one of these, and well, God forbid if the meteor hit or the world blew up, at least I'd have my name somewhere floating around in outer space on a star.
Twins Alec, Daniel, Billy, and Stephen have remained busy since Alec first broke into the entertainment business 24 years ago. But the brothers from New York